Okay, now we come to the part that's connected with this week's parsha. This week's Torah portion speaks about leprosies. Leprosies. Leprosies, not only one Torah portion, but a second Torah portion. We have a double this week. It becomes one Torah portion. By the Sfardim, if I'm not mistaken, they have 14 aliyahs. Because they divide. They have Parshas Azriya and Parsha Metzera. So they have 14, 7, and 7 people are called up. 7 in the first section, 7 in the second section. But many other communities, they have 7 aliyahs. It becomes like one parsha, one Torah portion. Sazriya Metzera. And this Torah portion is a long one. But we bridge in, right from Sazriya we go to Metzera. The one that receives the 4th aliyah, that's called up 4th to the Torah, is the one that crosses over into the new parsha Metzera. It's mentioned in Svarim that the well of Miriam is in the Sea of Tiberias, Tveria. Then there's Chamit Tveria, the hot water of Tveria. People go to heal themselves there for healing. So it's mentioned that the Arizal once took his Talmud, his student, Rab Chaim Vital, and he took him on a boat, on a ride, and he gave him to drink from the water. And he said, this is from the Eresh of Miriam. This will give you, I don't think he was speaking about healing, this will give you insight in understanding Torah, understanding secrets of Torah. But in addition to that, there's also a medrash, an anthology. And the medrash says that there was a certain person that had shchin, boils. He says he went down into the Tveria and got healed. He says this was the Be'er Shal Miriam, the well of Miriam that cured him. So the Gemara, the Medrash says, where is it? So they say that if a person goes up to Hara Carmel, Mount Carmel, stands in a certain position, he'll be able to see like a sift in the water, and that's the well of Miriam. Another location that's given is that he's standing by the middle entrance of the old shul in Tveria. This is already, I don't know if that shul is existing. He says that is right across the location where the well of Miriam is. So this is basically, the well of Miriam is for refining the mind and for curing. Now there's two different things here. There is one that people draw water Meitzoi Shabbos from the wells. This is one thing. And then there's another fact, and some people tend to mix it together. I don't remember seeing it as one. The tractate in Shabbos tells us that when a person drinks hot water on Meitzoi Shabbos, it is a cure. Hot water, a coffee, a tea, hot. Chamin b'Meitzoi Shabbos melugma. So I'm just thinking there is a Rosh Tevis. It's called, it's interesting, some people attribute it to a certain abbreviation in Tilim. Mechabesh latzveisa. Mechabesh means he cures their illnesses, the symptoms. He says Mechabesh is a Rosh Tevis. Chamin b'Meitzoi Shabbos milugma. It's a little different order. That drinking hot water Meitzoi Shabbos is a refuah, is a cure. So some people say you take the well water and you cook it. So it's like they're making one kugel out of it. But it seems like to be two different things. One is drinking water, one is... Now when we say drawing from a well, because today everything is coming from the reservoirs and everything, so some people say that even the sink is included in that. Drawing from a sink. Okay, now we're going to go up a little more on a Hasidic and Kabbalistic level. In Kabbalistic terms, what attributes are related to healing? Very Kabbalistic. This is real, pure Kabbalah. I don't think we can go past I don't think anybody can go past this. This is like from the Pardes, which is one of the main authorities, a whole book on Kabbalah, different sections, different chapters, and this is from section 29, chapter 4. But before that, I just want to mention a quote from the Iyar, and actually from Iyar from the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek was the third leader of Chabad, and all the Rebbes of Chabad, in addition to catering all the different parts of Torah, the revealed part of Torah, anthology, remez, which is called alluding to, remez of Torah, then the literal meaning of Torah. There's also Sod. Pardes is an abbreviation of 4 sections. Pshat, remez, drush, sod. Pshat is the literal meaning, remez is how we allude, sometimes something is hinted in Torah that we point out to. Then there is drush, anthology, then there's Sod, Kabbalah. And then there's Chassidus, which includes everything, a 5th level. So speaking about Kabbalah, the Iyar says, Ani Hashem Rifecha is abbreviation. Ki Ani Hashem Rifecha is abbreviation, the word Arich. Arich is a level in Keser. It's an attribute in Keser, in the attribute which is called crown, which is above the 10 attributes. Because when we speak about curing, it comes from somewhere which is higher than everything else. Simply put, the curing is a solution for an illness. So it has to come from a level which is not within the framework of the illness. A solution from a higher authority. So therefore, basically, refuah comes from Keser. Speaking about additional spheres, the Tzemach Tzedek writes, which we'll actually discuss further about the curing, Refu'eini Hashem ve'irofei, when the cure comes through Tiferes, that goes up to Keser, which means the attribute of Tiferes in the 10 attributes, they are divided into the 10 attributes of the world of Atzilus, is divided into 3 columns. There's the right column, the left column, and the middle column. The right column and the left column, each one is inclined toward a certain attribute, represents a certain attribute, and therefore is also within the framework of that attribute. The right column is considered chesed, through and through. So basically the 3 attributes that are on the line and lane of chesed is basically chokhmah, chesed, and netzach. They're called chachan, the abbreviation. They're the right, they represent the positive. And the ones that are on the left is basically bina, gvura, and hoid. They represent the negative aspects, of strictness, removing oneself of revelation. On the other hand, chesed shows an idea of revelation, drawing down. One is drawing down, one is removing oneself. Now when it comes to the middle one is the regulator. The middle one is the one that blends together these 2 opposite extremes. What is the reason that the middle one could do that? Is because the middle one is directly connected with Keser, with the crown, which is above everything. Because the middle one is connected with Keser, so it's not locked in and restricted within the framework like the other 2 columns. And therefore it can bring down rachamim g'delim, mercy, great mercy, because it is coming from a level that's not within the attributes. It is coming from the level of Keser, where the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed on a greater scale. There is the 13 attributes on different levels. There's the 13 attributes as they are in the attribute of Malchut, which is the lowest of all the attributes. So that is throughout the year. When a person prays and he awakens, initiates the 13 attributes of mercy. Then there's a higher level as it is in Zohar, in the higher attributes. Then there is the level as it is in Keser, that's unlimited. As it's mentioned, our sages tell us that when a person refers to the 13 attributes. It says, Einon chezres reikam, they don't return empty. A person's prayers are answered. Because this is where the prayers are fulfilled. So therefore, this is basically the inyan of curing, that the refuah comes from Tiferes, which reaches out to Keser, which over there you have the inyan of Rachamim Gdoilim, not just Rachamim, mercy, great mercy. Then comes another level, another way of explaining it. Tzemach Tzedek explains it in a different place. There are 45 volumes of the Tzemach Tzedek's writings. Tzemach Tzedek wrote 24 pages every day in his life. By Shabbos, he wrote it in the end of Shabbos. There is one opinion he wrote 480,000 pages. Another opinion said that he wrote 600,000 pages. Many of them perished in fires, big fires that took place in the city of Lubavitch, and we lost a lot. But from these manuscripts, what we do have is basically 45 volumes on Chassidus, and then he wrote on the Talmud, then he wrote responses, then he wrote, and there's constantly always more and more published. So, in a different place, in a different discourse, the Tzemach Tzedek writes that refuah relates to the number 8. Why is curing connected with 8? Because Bina is the 8th attribute from below to above. When we count from below to above, Bina is the 8th. And because Bina has a revelation of the crown Atiko Kadisha, which is the higher part of, higher section of Keser, and this is where there is a remedy for all the defects. Now, why is it that Bina is related to Atik? Atik means pleasure. Why is Bina connected with Atik? Because when a person studies something and they understand it, it is a joy. And that is why Bina is considered the mother of the, is Eim Abonim Smecha, as we'll say tomorrow in Hallel. Eim Abonim, the mother of the children, is joyous. The children are the emotions. When there's a mother, the mother is the understanding, the intellect understands it well, then it develops into emotions. And because there is an intellect that understands, a person understands it well, he has a pleasure. He saw something new. He discovered something intellectual. The person's face lights up. Tzohavu Panav. It says in the Talmud, I think it's in Yerushalmi, in the Jerusalem Talmud, that when one of the sages found something new on a subject, intellectual subject in Torah, Tzohavu Panav, his face lit up, out of joy, Simcha. So basically, Bina is connected with joy, because Bina brings the person to the understanding and the analysis of the topic that the person is trying to understand. And therefore this generates a pleasure, which the pleasure is a deeper character trait in the person. It is the character trait that's higher than all the attributes, intellect, intellectual capabilities, the emotions, and even the willpower of the person. Pleasure is higher than willpower. Sometimes it's brought that the willpower is higher than pleasure. How do we know? A very interesting halacha. It's mentioned in halacha that if a person saw a bad dream Friday night, and it's happening the third time, that if the person wishes, he wants, he can fast on Shabbos. Why can he fast on Shabbos? Because this is his pleasure. He feels comfortable that he's able to clear it. Otherwise, he just doesn't have a restful day. He's just very restless, very uncomfortable. He's very traumatized by the dream, and he feels he wants to do something about it. So our sages permit him, allow him to do it. So what is the reason for that? The reason is because his willpower makes that to be his pleasure. By wanting to do it, it calms him down, and this will bring about his willpower, his pleasure. But there's a little catch to it. Not a catch. It's basically, according to halacha, he has to fast after Shabbos again because he fasted on the day of Shabbos. But for temporary relief, this saved his day. It made his pleasure for Shabbos. So this is the proof that will is over tainuk. But in general, how do we know tainuk, pleasure, is over will? One of the ways that we know is also basically because when a person wants something, they relate to it. For example, a person walks in the street, sees something, and they see something that they never saw before, and they look at it, think about it, and then comes a will. They want it. The wanting it is basically bringing the person in a relationship to this object, to this item. Until then, the item did not exist in the world of the person, and the person did not relate to it. It now entered the person's world, and the person is being drawn to it. The word ratzon, when you turn around the letters, a little different sequence, it's called sined, a channel. It is a channel, it is a connection. Ratzon is the first connection that a person makes with something around him, with the outside world. On the other hand, when we say tainuk, pleasure, pleasure is something that moves the person back into himself. When a person is in a level of pleasure, they're actually removing themselves from everything around them. How do we see it and when do we see it? Shabbos. By Shabbos we see that when a person is in a state of pleasure, ecstasy, they are actually removed from everything. They don't want to work, they're laid back. It is basically going back all the energy and all the character traits and all the tools that the body used the whole week to work are being folded up and returned back to the source. They get back up, they return back up to the soul. They become part of the soul. This person is not exerting himself at all. It is basically just pleasure. This is Shabbos. So therefore, Shabbos is basically how the person finds himself on a very high level of ecstasy, removed from everything around him. And in Shabbos itself, there are three levels. There's the Friday night, there's Shabbos day, and Shabbos afternoon. Friday night, person worked 6 days, and then they finally, Shabbos arrived. Although it's like in these months, it's a long day, but finally it gets there. It gets there. And when it gets there, the person feels a relief. They finally got to Shabbos. They caught their breath. They're able to breathe normal. They're able to relax. And they got to base. But there's still something in the background that they're experiencing. They're exhausted.